My name is Gloria Joseph. I'm from Prachlip, which means fountain band. And I'm 78 years old. I got 7 girls, 20 grandchildren, and 34 great-grandchildren. I come from a family of 12 siblings, and there's only 4 of us left. And I grew up in a poor home, and there was a lot of violence, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. And when I was about 5, I was sent to a center where I was sexually abused from 5 till I was 8 years old. And again, when I was going to school, I got sexually abused by a 10-year-old female. And again, when I was 12, I was raped by a man, adult man. And after that, my self-esteem was so low, and I thought maybe I had a V on my head, a victim. You can do anything what you want with me. And then I had a common law husband that raped me when I just came out of the Lillooet District Hospital, and it ripped open, and I was so ashamed that I wouldn't go to the hospital again. And I tried to tell my mother when I first started to get abused, and she told me not to say that because it was one of the family members. So I just kept my mouth shut after that. And then my first common law husband I stayed with for 10 years, and he was physically abusive to me because it was a cycle. I seen my mother go through it, so I did the same thing. And then I was trying to find a husband that'd be good to me and love me for who I was. The second husband I lived with for 2-3 years, and he physically abused me too. And I left him, and I went with another guy for, I think it was for 5 years. He did the same thing, physical abuse. And I went with another guy. I just stayed with him for 1 year because he beat me also. And finally I met this guy. He wasn't physical abusive, but he was verbal abusive, which isn't any different than physical abuse because you can't see the pain. You kept it in. And then I started at 45, I started going for workshops. I wouldn't talk about it right away. And when you don't talk about your pain, your trauma, it doesn't go away because you just stuff it. And I started getting all kind of diseases because of my stuffing. First of all, I got I think it was a cyst. They said it was as big as a football. That is in October, and then it came back in March. And I went over Kamloops to take that one out because they didn't get it all done, the Lillooet District Hospital. And then I had cyst on my breast, and then finally it turned into cancer. And then I had diabetes after that, high blood pressure, fluid in my, after they did that radiation, they burnt my lung, and now there's fluid in there. And now I have heart failure, and I really believe that is because I haven't dealt with all the trauma I went through in my childhood. And I never really did have a parent. I guess I was a black sheep in the family. And I had to really fend for myself, and I looked after all my siblings, even my older brothers. I was the parent for them. My mother died at the early age, 58. And I think my dad died 65 or something like that. My mother died. My brother was driving, they were drinking alcohol, and they went over right above the Lillooet Bridge down here, the old bridge. And they rolled down, and my brother, two brothers, and my dad jumped out, and her and her sister-in-law broke their neck, and they died instantly. And then my dad and my brothers couldn't stop drinking after that. My older brother blamed himself for my mother dying. And he drank and drank. He must have went into the treatment center about 7, 8 times. And I told the counselor over there, I know why he wouldn't quit drinking. He's blaming himself for killing my mother. And I said, we don't blame him. So they started working at it, and he quit, and he's doing okay now, but he has cancer. And finally in the 50s, I started a women's group at Fountain. I was up there for 10 years, and I had about 24 ladies, and they were all disclosing. And I was just starting, and I was training, and I didn't really know. And then I went and told Chief and Counsel, and Chief and Counsel took those families and took them to the family. Of course, they were in denial, and they didn't believe the ladies. And they even the Chief and Counsel didn't believe them. And then they dropped out of the group, and then later on, after that, the band manager placed 3 kids in this offender's home. He just got out of court, and he sexually abused his daughter, and he was charged, and she placed those 3 kids in there. And I went and told her, he just got out of jail. I said, he was charged with sexually abusing his daughter. I said, I don't think you should place him there. And she wouldn't do anything. And finally I went and told her, if you don't move those kids, I'm going to go see the ministry and tell them what you did. So she moved them, and she got really angry with me, and I got a letter within 2 weeks that I had to go on part-time or leave. So I just left. Then I left, and about not even a month, I got called from Victims Assistance. They wanted to hire me, so I went on part-time. And Bridge River called me, and they asked me if I wanted to go work for them for part-time to teach a social development worker, and I did. So I worked up there for 8 months, and I worked for police-based in the police office. So I thought I better take a training, so I went to NVIT, and I took sexual abuse counseling. And I started working on myself. I must have went to about, there was the 5 counselors I went to about all my sexual abuse. And I talked about all my pain and my trauma. And then I went to that NVIT training. It was about an 8-month training, and I passed. And then when I was at the police-based for about a year, and then They weren't treating my clients very nice. They had to sign in and sign out, and then they'd holler at them, and they won't come back. So I went to the Friendship Centre and I asked them, it was Susan James was the executor at the time. I asked her, can I move over here as a community-based? I said, the police are really not nice to my clients. So we moved, now I'm community-based. I've been there for 30 years. And I am a part-time victims assistant yet, and I'm part-time Stop Violence Against Women. And we have women groups every Monday and for the beginners, and on Tuesday we have women's group for the old group. And we thought it was better that way because the new group don't like to share in a big group because there's about 10 of them in the old group. So it's working very well. And I see a lot of them are healing from the old group, and they said this is the only place that they trust, because I guess they went to other groups and the confidentiality was broken, so they came back to our group again. And we do a lot of self-healing, like we do mini workshops, and we do a lot of sharing. And I really disclose a little bit about myself. If they wanna, you know, get over their trauma, to start talking about, quit stuff in it, take it out and talk and cry about it and feel the pain. And then we do the inner childhood, boundaries, self-esteem, anger management, and that is going very well. And I was really angry with my mother, and even when she passed away I couldn't even cry because I blamed her. But after I started healing, I realized that you know, she probably went through the same thing I did, because sexual abuse was happening everywhere because of the residential school. And I realized that, and I was able to forgive her, and I was able to cry because we were so poor that sometimes she went without eating. She fed us. And that's when I was able to love her again. Even though my dad used to beat her, cut her, right here, her chin was hanging, split her head with a gallon of wine. I didn't resent my dad, but I often wondered why I resented her, because I was hanging on to her dress when she was leaving me there. And I blamed her for many years. And with my 7 girls, I also had a son. He was the first one born, and I went down the river. I was about 8 months pregnant, and my common law husband was coming up on a horse, and he says, "You want to ride?" It was really big and it's hot, really hot in the summertime. And I said, okay. So I went up on the hill and I jumped on, and that horn on the saddle hit me in the stomach. And I felt my stomach go hard. And when my son was born, half of his head was rotten because he wasn't born until I was 9 months. And I hated him. I hated him so much, no kidding, that even on his wedding, I wouldn't even sit beside him. That's how much I hated him. But I apologized to her and I told her I'm sorry. It took me a long time, and it was just 2 years ago when I finally realized that hate was dragging me down. I was getting sicker and sicker. And I went to see Helen Shirley. She was my last counselor. She moved. And I told her, I don't want to carry this hate around. I said, it's hurting my girls because I just couldn't stand them. And then she started talking to me, and then she asked, "Do you believe in God?" I said, "Yeah, I do. I pray all the time." I said, "I confess my sin for hating him." And she says, "Well, Gloria, do you know that God is numbers us when we're going to die? He, you can't say, 'No, I'm not going yet. I'm not ready.' If it's your number, you go." And then that's when I broke down and I realized that, I guess it was time for him to go. And I was able to forgive and get over that hate. Even when he was dying, I said I went and told him that I forgave him, but I was just lying because I wanted him to go instead of suffering. But after that, that's when I finally let it go. But carrying all this hate and that, it festers in your body. And now I'm thinking of retiring. And I really don't want to, because the Crown Council, they always tell me, "I think it's going to change, Gloria. If you go, there'll be nobody around." She says, they say when I get sick that nobody does, what I do. I go out of my way to pick them up, and if they don't answer the phone or answer the door, even the police use me. I go and knock till they open the door. I tell them, "I know you're in there, open the door." And then they do open the door, and I, explain to them if they don't come, they can be charged. And they'll hold them in there till the next court day. So they come with me. I like my job, I love it, and I don't really want to leave, but my age is getting up there that I have to leave sooner or later. And my daughter works with me, and I like working with her. She's planning to leave soon. And I don't know if I can do without her, because we do the workshop together. And most of my daughters, when I first started healing, they didn't believe that, I was trying to change. They were still angry with me. And then I had to gather them up. And I explained to them that, that I was abused. And it really affected my life. I said my brain was like a cobweb. I couldn't even think of you kids. I didn't want to have so many kids, but they wouldn't give me, like, them days they only gave what is those pills called? Birth control pills. It used to upset my stomach, so they wouldn't give it to me, and they wouldn't give me surgery or anything, so I ended up with that many kids. Then I explained to them, why there was so many of them, and why I sent them to the residential school, and why, my nephew sexually abused them, and there were signs there was blood on the sheet, and it didn't even dawn on me because my mind was on my own abuse. And I told them I'm sorry. And I kept going to the women's group and counseling, and they seen a change in me, and most of them are in that field helping people. So we're pretty close now. We're pretty close, my family. I'm glad that I broke the cycle for my grandchildren. I don't want them to go through the same thing, and they're really careful who they leave their kids with, because you can't trust anybody, no kidding. I sat down, I counted all the offenders. I was over 200, and I got sick. And I got that list. People you wouldn't believe was an offender. people that's high in the community here. But I can't even disclose that because there's no charge. So, yeah, a long time ago, there was no electricity or no water, we had to pack our water about, maybe about 3 kilometers, and we had to wash by washing board when I had my 7 girls, cloth diapers, and yeah, I had a hard life. I think that's why I picked out working with victims, is because there was no one there for me. I tried to talk to people about it. They didn't want to listen. And a lot of ladies ask me, how can you listen to this story? It just gets me sick, like even my daughter. She says, I don't know how you can listen to this story. I said, if you heal and look at the trauma you went through and talk about it and get it out, I said, you can listen to anybody's story. So, I don't know what else I can talk about. I'd like to say something to the victims that are out there. I really want to say that you work through your trauma, especially the one that's been sexually abused and physical abuse. If you give you 100% in your healing, you can get over this trauma. You can get over the pain. If you don't, if you just keep stuffing and stuffing, it turns into some medical problems. And please talk to someone, a counselor or anybody. There's a lot of people out in the fields that are willing to help you. And there's workshops going on. Thank you.